Welcome in, everybody, to the 2025 Chicago Bears season preview. Happy to be talking about the 14th team on my power rankings. This is a team that obviously has a lot in store and a lot of excitement surrounding it. Obviously, Caleb Williams, number one overall pick last year, did show some flashes of what you wanted to see from him. Didn't show enough consistency due to some of the surroundings, and ultimately Matty Bafus had to go so that they could bring in the hot new coaching candidate, obviously Ben Johnson, offensive coordinator for the Detroit Lions, who has orchestrated consistent top five offensive attacks, and for good reason, because he is one of the better offensive minds in the National Football League and now gets his chance to be a head coach with some talent that has been brought in, obviously along the offensive line, with the weapons as well, certainly through the draft, and also what this defense can kind of look like under Dennis Allen, who I'm going to be excited to talk about as well. So this team, 14th, we're into playoff range, and we'll talk about that when we get to the prediction section. I like what the Chicago Bears have been built under GM Ryan Poles. I think that he is a little bit of a controversial figure as far as his grade is concerned. I'd give him a B minus. I think the ways in which he has made more good moves than that. Obviously, the big headliner is the trade that ultimately helped them net that number one overall pick, given the fact that they had such a poor season the year prior. But the fact that they were able to really get those extra picks from the Carolina Panthers and DJ Moore, who is currently their wide receiver one, turned out to be a great move for them. Obviously, they get the franchise quarterback in Caleb Williams. I liked his draft this past season, as we'll talk about as well. Obviously, there are some issues as far as, like the Chase Claypool trade. Have you gotten full return on investment for Montez Sweat when you could have maybe waited a year and just paid him in free agency? Those things are question marks, certainly. But I like what Ryan Poles has done, being able to build a really good franchise. And, I think you give him some credit for being able to hire this coaching staff as far as that aspect is concerned, too. Obviously, Ben Johnson doesn't have a grade, but I think incredibly highly of Ben Johnson. We'll talk about him a little bit later. But as far as the team direction is concerned, to the moon. This is a team that's looking at an arrow that's pointing straight upwards. I truly do feel that way. I think that they have a bright future ahead of them. And this year will be the first year, in my opinion, that you will see the Chicago Bears really show those signs on a consistent basis. So, with that being said, let's get into Ryan Poles in this front office's offseason in review. So as far as the offseason review, not too much to report as far as subtractions. They did say goodbye to Keenan Allen. Obviously, veteran, 1 year kind of mercenary that came in, got a little bit too much volume, in my personal opinion, for my liking, for the Chicago Bears offense last year. And that's just really has to come down to how I didn't necessarily love the way in which the offense was designed. Larry Borum, left tackle, also moves on. Tevin Jenkins, interior offensive lineman, also gone from the team, as is Gerald Everett. So, along those lines, as far as what the Chicago Bears teams were able to add, specifically as far as veterans were concerned, Odahingbo was given a nice edge contract to be able to be the guy opposite of Montez Sweat. It certainly makes sense from that standpoint to be able to bring him in and what he can kind of provide. They also went out there, added Joe Thuney, or I should say traded for Joe Thuney for a fourth-round pick and gave him a new extension. Obviously, three-time Super Bowl champion, two of those, I should say, I think he's technically a four-time champion. I should have to look it up. Multiple-time champion with the Patriots and the Kansas City Chiefs. Obviously, have protected for Tom Brady and Patrick Mahomes at this stage of his career. Multiple-time All-Pro, still one of the best guards in the National Football League, going to significantly help this offensive line. Grady Jarrett, veteran guy from the Falcons, there to add some support as far as the interior defensive line is concerned. Drew Dahlman, an underrated signing to be their center. Also from the Atlanta Falcons, had a solid career there for the Falcons. I think will be a serviceable center, which is something that the Bears haven't had recently, especially when you're putting him in front of Caleb Williams and in Ben Johnson's offense. It's important that they have that veteran center there. Drew Dahlman satisfies that. Devin Duvernay and Olamide Zaccheaus both add to the wide receiver depth for this team. So let's get to the 2025 NFL draft, a draft that I personally did love. And it starts with kind of these first four picks, and we'll get a little bit later on into it. Colston Loveland, my tight end one in the draft class, in my opinion, has the man beater capabilities that really can set you apart as far as a receiving tight end in the National Football League. Still tough enough. He does block on inline if you ask him to, but I think they'll leave a little bit more of that to Cole Kmet. And obviously the fact that now Colston Loveland can give that mismatch idea of a Sam Laporta, obviously in Ben Johnson offense, makes a lot of sense. And again, we'll talk about these weapons a little bit more too, specifically as it pertains to what this offense will look like. Luther Burden III, exceptional wide receiver out of Mizzou, a guy that was a top three wide receiver in this class, in my personal opinion. Had a little bit of poor circumstances. It feels like excessive, but some things that held him back at Mizzou. I didn't think Brady Cook was that good of a quarterback. Offensive system at Mizzou, I think, didn't necessarily accentuate his talents either. He is dynamic with the ball in his hands and has the ability to run real wide receiver routes really from the outside or inside because he has the release package necessary. He is a guy that may not necessarily get a great deal of volume this year, but I think you will see somebody that starts to break out. He's a different type of wide receiver than this guy, but his career, in my opinion, can go very similar to Jameson Williams, where the volume is maybe less early on. You see the flashes, and then he really starts to pop. He has future 1,000-yard wide receiver potential, in my personal opinion. So Isaac Trapilo out of Boston College, really good tackle prospect, a little bit more on the developmental side than Ready made. And I understand that he's been in this left tackle situation that we'll talk about later on, but powerful, tall, plays with a lot of power, can sometimes get off balance as well. Needs some work as far as the technique, but I think getting that cleaned up can certainly happen as well. Shamar Turner, dynamic inside out pass rusher from, I should say, defensive disruptor type, I should say. There you go. Disruptor for the defensive line. Again, you can move them inside out, given the way in which they want to try and use some of these guys alongside Montez, alongside Dio, alongside GERVON DEXTER. I think that makes a lot of sense for where Shamar can kind of slot in with them as well. Same thing for GRADY JARRETT. So it makes a lot of sense. Ruben Hippolyte, linebacker. It seems like they want to play him in kind of a hybrid Sam role and then give him a little bit more depth behind, obviously, one of a really good linebacker duo, in my opinion, that they have on this team. Zafe Frazier, height, weight, speed, kind of quarterback developmental prospect, DB. As well, they'll continue to work on him at a UTSA. And then Kyle Monangai, Rutgers running back, to add to this room that we'll talk about a little bit later on, that has some interesting characteristics. So with all that being said, like I talked about, this team's direction is pointed straight up. I do believe that it is fair to say that this team not only needs to be over 500, but should be, competing for a playoff spot, and that being the expectation should not, to be outside the realm of possibility. Now, if there's for some reason some issues and the defense doesn't perform well, but Caleb Williams looks as he should, and with real development from his first to his second year, then I think those expectations can also be met in that sense too. So with that being said, let's go ahead and talk about Mr. Caleb Williams. All right, so let's discuss former number one overall pick, Mr. Caleb Williams himself. And like, there's a lot of criticism of Caleb coming out of USC for the fingernail painting and the emotion that he showed after USC had lost the game. I don't care about any of that. Me personally, I see the way that his teammates responded to him, specifically during the Hard Knocks years. I saw the way his teammates responded to him at USC. I believe in this kid as a leader of men. That is the thing that strikes me first and foremost as far as the mentality is concerned. And look, he was tough as nails. He dealt with a lot of things. It was easy for him last year, in my opinion, to fold up shop, even given how many unblocked pressures he was going through, the hits he was taking. And again, some of that was on him. There were things that he missed, that he didn't do well last year, that he significantly needs to improve upon. And I'll talk about them in a little bit, but I still fully believe in this kid as far as being able to be one of the better quarterbacks in the National Football League. With that being said, you're going to see some play action passes and him being able to throw the ball over the middle of the field. And look, when the Bears played that Bills preseason game during those first few drives, you saw what exactly is going to be asked for him. Operating in structure, the right timing on his drops, being able to stick his foot in the ground and use that incredible arm talent to deliver great passes to these weapons over the middle of the field off of play action. That's exactly what made Jared Goff so effective in Ben Johnson's offense. And I expect that Caleb Williams will be able to do those exact same things. The reason why Ben Johnson has been yelling at him for the past month at training camp is so that he will be able and be ready to do those things. If you do not drill into his mind about when to be on time into this offense, then there are going to be struggles. The reasons why he was making some of those mistakes is because he was trying to make sure he got those things down. And I love the fact that from this aspect is during last season, there were too often many times in which I felt like he was trying to be too robotic, too perfect, but the structure around him wasn't detail oriented enough really to reward that type of behavior. Now he comes into this aspect of saying, we are going to be detail oriented in every facet of the game. These weapons are going to have this drilled into his head. Same thing that Ben Johnson talked about with Luther Burden and seeing his progression throughout camp as well. The offensive line is going to have this drilled into their head. That's why they went out and got some veterans that can be able to handle these things. this is going to be a full team effort to make sure that this offense is operating at a high level. You saw a preview of that in the preseason game as well. Caleb Williams' ability to create these intermediate explosive plays with play action pieces according to it, because of Ben Johnson's ability to make those things look the same to the defense, is going to be a major portion of his development this season. And I've got no doubt that this kid's going to be able to it, because the great thing is he already knows how to do the difficult things. The creating plays out of structure, he can do that because that is innate to him, and he understands how to do things when it breaks down. These are the technical aspects that he has the arm talent to. He has the athleticism to pull off. Now it was about, hey, can we drill it into your head? And Ben Johnson was the perfect coach to do so. So I'm obviously bullish on what I think Caleb Williams could do, and I am very excited to see. So obviously he's 17th as far as my quarterback rankings, a middle of the pack guy that has really, in my opinion, difference making upside. There's only two other guys in that group, Drake May and Trevor Lawrence. I have a lot of belief in what Caleb Williams can be. So we'll talk about him a little bit more later on, but let's get to the roster as far as the Chicago Bears teams is concerned. So, as far as the Chicago Bears offense in 2025 is concerned, I got it at a B plus. And yes, I'm a little bit bullish on what this looks like. As far as the trends are concerned, I think Darnell Wright showed improvements last year. I think that taking it to another level, especially with what he can provide as a run game difference maker from that right tackle position, going to be a major piece of it. They got Jonah Jackson coming in to be their right guard. A little bit shaky, but I think it'll be okay for what the rest of the offensive line will end up looking like I talked about, Drew Dahlman, solid center coming over from Atlanta to bring that veteran presence, help out Caleb Williams as well. Joe Thuney, one of the best guards in the National Football League, point blank period. Again, the ability that they traded for is a guy that is an all-pro level player to be able to come in and stabilize this line. And then Braxton Jones will be playing next to Joe Thuney, maybe below average tackle. And I think that's certainly fair. And we'll talk about the idea of him and Ozzie Trapilo and Kieran Amagaje and what this left tackle situation is going to end up looking like. There may be some change up there, but I think it's enough to where there's enough different pieces there that they'll be able to figure it out as far as that position is as the season goes on. So it's my feeling as far as the trenches, and then we get to the weapons. And as far as around Caleb Williams, the tight end position, like I said, I like this combination of Colston, Loveland, Cole Kmet. Their different talents kind of meshed well together. Cole Kmet, a little bit more of the rough and tumble interior inline blocking type of tight end, but also brings real receiving chops, as we've seen. Colston Loveland is a true man-beating guy that could create a lot of mismatches in heavy personnel sets that I'm sure Ben Johnson is going to put to good use as well. Running back room, a little bit shaky. DeAndre Swift has had his vision issues, still a solid enough back when running the football, but still has those vision issues that sometimes show up. Fine as far as catching it is concerned. Roshan Johnson, a little bit more of a goal line back at this point, but can he get a little bit better at pass protection and the other aspects of the game is a question mark. And Kyle Monangai, we'll see how he ends up factoring into this rotation, if at all. Wide receiver room, a really good wide receiver room in my personal opinion. Rome Odunze is a guy that I liked a lot. I think it was worthwhile high pick in the 2024 NFL draft out of Washington. I think he has a lot more potential as well. DJ Moore coming over from Carolina, a guy that consistently is a 1,000-yard wide receiver threat, a earned wide receiver one. Is he a true guy? I understand why there may be a little bit of question marks. I think there's some misusage that has applied to these weapons as well that I'll talk about a little bit later on. Zacchaeus and Duvernay, again, adding to the wide receiver depth. Luther Burton III is somebody I expect to really take over that third wide receiver spot as we get further into this. Again, a guy that I thought had a lot of talent and somebody I expect to see a lot of for the Chicago Bears offense. Let's get to the defense. So as far as the defense is concerned, you're talking about another B plus grade in my personal opinion for this roster on paper, and specifically as it pertains to Dennis Allen and his usage of this defense is a thing that I'll talk about when it gets to the secondary of how I'm really excited to watch them. So up front, Montez Sweat, Gervon Dexter Jr., Grady Jarrett, Dio and Dingbo form that top four is what you're going to see. A little bit of Andrew Billings maybe instead of Grady Jarrett on some really down run snaps if they want to give him a nice breather as well. I think that a combination of Dominic Robinson and Daniel Hardy is enough depth at defensive end, though it's a little shaky. I'll be perfectly honest with you. That is something that concerns me a bit. A really promising training camp start. Austin Booker, unfortunately, banged up his knee during preseason, so he's going to start the season on IR. I think when he gets back, he's going to provide some much needed defensive end depth for this team, and that's a name to look out for as well. Linebacker room, like I talked about, Tremaine Edmonds, TJ Edwards perform a really good linebacker combination. Noah Sewell and Ruben Hippolyte are solid enough depth as far as that is concerned. And then this cornerback room. I think the cornerback position for this team has really been miscast as more more of a zone-based group. Dennis Allen is a guy that likes to come after you and be able to play man coverage behind it. I think they have the cornerbacks necessary to do that. Jalen Johnson, in my opinion, is easily a top 10 guy, one of the best in the National Football League. Kyler Gordon, the nickel, is really good. I like where he's kind of developed as well. Tyreek Stevenson, slowly but surely kind of coming along as well. The depth behind him is a little bit of a question mark, but I will say that top three is a three that I think you can play man coverage against a lot of wide receiver rooms and feel good about. And I think Dennis Allen allowing them to be more aggressive is going to be a big key for them. And that extends to the safety room. Jaquan Brisker, Kevin Byard, a little bit of a veteran presence there. Jonathan Owens, I think, has actually improved since he's come over from Green Bay as well. Everybody knows him as Simone Biles' husband, I know. But he actually has improved from just a special teams guy to somebody that you could put in a 3-safety rotation. Jaquan Brisker is the star in this position, in my opinion, the way in which he plays near the line of scrimmage and creates havoc. Is also solid enough in man coverage versus tight ends. Kevin Byard, still veteran presence, but still has the ability to really play in some split safety looks to give you a little bit of single high coverage as well. So I like what this team can bring to the table across this defense, man. I think Dennis Allen is the perfect defensive coordinator to really implement it. And people will talk about Dennis Allen as far as the Saints head coaching job is concerned. A, didn't have a lot of talent, and B, he's not a head coach. He is a defensive coordinator through and through. And I think he is a really good one at that. So I'm excited to see what he can do with the talent, especially young talent on this defense as well. I didn't talk about it, but Shamar Turner, man, look out for him. He's going to be creating some havoc throughout the entirety of the season for the Bears. So with that being said, let's go ahead and get to my first breakout player. So Caleb Williams is my very obvious breakout player based on how I just talked about it. But my other breakout player is Mr. GERVON Dexter Sr., a guy out of Florida that I liked a lot. And again, you'll notice as I go through some of these guys, I'm a big fan of the interior disruptor types as far as the 3-tech is concerned. And he definitely fits that bill. I think he plays very well with his hands. The quickness on his inside is impressive. The ways in which Dennis Allen is going to use him to create some one-on-one pass rush opportunities, especially with his pressure packages, is going to be very fun for me to watch. I think you saw pretty consistent flashes of his pass rush ability last year. If he can become a better run defender as well, and makes the ability for a leap as far as using those one-on-one situations to really attack the passer and beat blocks, I think he has an ability to really be a top 10 interior defensive lineman. Is he going to be that next year? Probably a little bit rich, but I do expect that he's going to take another step. And when this defense is talked about, throughout the National Football League as one of the better units, his name will certainly be at the top of the reasons why. So with that being said, let's get to the thing that's got me excited for the Bears. Thing that's got me excited is the usage of the weapons in Ben Johnson's offense, and we're going to have a little bit of ODUNZE from the Chiefs preseason game specifically to look at here. But ODUNZE, again, talking about him coming out of the draft in the 2024 season, I thought that he was somebody that could be a true number one wide receiver in the future. And you saw that at Washington and what he was able to do hooking up with Michael Penix. But you got to use him properly. And I don't think that they put him as a true X wide receiver and then also created those mismatches for him over the middle of the field as often as they should have in last year's system that had a lot of issues. They didn't use DJ more effectively, in my opinion, in the underneath aspect of it. Too many things that were drawn up for Keenan Allen that just didn't make a whole lot of sense either from that perspective. I think that the offensive system last year was not designed well in general as far as the route concepts were concerned. This year, I expect Ben Johnson to very much change that. But it's not just him. Again, I think getting the ball into Luther Burden's hands and his explosive nature that he can create a lot of plays with the ball in his hands. And then also this guy right here, Colston Loveland, again, a guy to Michigan that was my tight end one, I think is going to be used both to beat man-to-man coverage on a consistent basis, and then the ability to be able to, be a consistent force over the middle. And I think that he has the ability to do so. I think Ben Johnson is going to have a lot of fun using him in ways in which he did for Sam Laporta. I think he's going to be a high touchdown scorer too. I think the sky's the limit for these guys, and I think specifically the offensive system being able to maximize their talent and put them in the right positions to succeed is going to be a big piece of this. So with that being said, let's go to my concern for the Bears. So my first concern does have to go with this trio right here: Ozzie Trapilo, Braxton Jones, and Kieran Emagaje. There it is. I'm a little bit concerned about that left tackle position. Again, I think that there's enough talent between Braxton Jones and Ozzie Trapilo to be able to really get competent play, at least even if it's still below average. But Braxton Jones, in my opinion, has to be better than he was last season. If he can do so, especially playing next to Joe THUNEY, then I think there's nothing to worry about. That's going to be one of the biggest things that we watching earlier on in the season. Is there an issue issue at that left tackle position, because that can sink an offense if that's too big of an issue, especially given Jonah's a little bit shakier at the right guard position. So, with that being said, let's get to my next concern, which kind of does involve this guy, Montez Sweat. Obviously, a lot of investment placed in him to be the primary pass rusher for this team. Is he alpha level pass rusher good enough? I think that that's a major issue, and I don't think he necessarily satisfies that. That being said, fortunately, this defense led by Dennis Allen, I think, has enough talent on the back end, and then also has enough talent at the second level. And you add in GERVON Dexter Sr., and then a little bit of the veteran injection with Kevin Byard and Grady Jarrett as well. Get Austin Booker back. The secondary pass rush can be enough there for it to work still, but I think that another step from Montez Sweat would help a lot, and so that's a little bit of concern as far as being able to generate that pass rush, because I think the back end and the second level are ready to roll for this defense under Dennis Allen. So, with that being said, let's get to my hot take. So my hot take does in fact revolve around Mr. Caleb Williams, again, the number one overall pick in the 2024 NFL draft. And again, after Jaden Daniels' awesome rookie year, after some of the flashes that we've seen from Drake May, after Bo Nix got the after Bo Nix was on the Broncos playoff team, there's been a little bit of conversation about, hey, was Caleb actually worth the number one overall pick? What's his potential? Can he still be the quote unquote generational tag? I fully believe that he can satisfy all of those things. I truly believe that he can be a difference-making quarterback in the National Football League. I talked about it during the quarterback, kind of segment. The ability to be able to operate on time and in structure is things that he was trying to do last year, but I don't think the offensive infrastructure was actually rewarding those aspects of it. Does he have to improve? Absolutely, no doubt about it. But I think that he is somebody that puts the work in to do so, and I think that Ben Johnson is just the guy to be able to direct him rightfully. And again, you saw the things come out in the book that his father ended up writing or whatever. The fact that he wasn't getting directed on what he needed to watch, tape wise, he wasn't getting directed properly during practice. That all goes into how bad of a situation it was last year and how good of a situation I believe it's going to be this year for him to truly flourish. So my hot take is, yes, I would have still taken Caleb Williams number one, even with the benefit of hindsight. With that being said, let's get to our bold predictions. So with my bold prediction, I will continue the theme of Caleb Williams and this Bears offense and how much I believe in it. I believe Caleb Williams becomes the first 4,000-yard passer in Chicago Bears franchise history. And yes, that does sound kind of crazy that that's the bar, but of course, since it would be history, I think it's fair enough to put at a bold prediction as well. I believe in this offense. I believe in what Ben Johnson is going to be able to put in positions to succeed. I think they'll run the ball well and then create explosives off of Caleb Williams' arm talent. Again, when things break down, he knows what to do to be able to still make plays happen. So with that being said, like I said, the Bears, we are into number 14. That's playoff territory. I have the Bears making the playoffs as a wild card this year with a 10-7 record. I think that they can be in the mix as far as, the NFC North. Where do the Packers land as far as their record? Where do the Lions land as far as their record? You'll have to obviously continue to see. But I think that they could be in the race a little bit late in the year for this division, at the very least, end up making the playoffs. Now, beyond that, I don't know, going to be a little bit tough. But that is my prediction for the Bears this entire season. Thank you guys so much for coming by to preview Chicago Bears. Happy to talk to you guys. Please make sure you like this video. Watch the other ones like those as well at DMW Sports here on YouTube, on Twitter, and TikTok, on Instagram.